What happened when daughter finds her cheating mother with her father's best friend? And from that single midnight moment, nothing inside that Charlotte household would ever feel safe again. The house on Briarwood Lane in Charlotte, North Carolina, was the kind of house that looked like peace from the outside. Warm porch light, trimmed hedges, a neighborhood where families barbecued on Sundays and trusted each other with spare keys. Zara was 11 years old and a light sleeper. It was past 1 in the morning when she heard it. Not arguing, not television, laughter. Low, familiar, and wrong in a way her body understood before her mind did. She sat up in her bed and listened. The sound floated up from downstairs like smoke, quiet enough to ignore, impossible to unhear. She came down the stairs slowly. The living room was lit by the small lamp near the bookshelf. Her mother Imani was standing close to a man, not just close, the kind of close that belongs only to people who have forgot the world is watching. Her hand rested on his forearm. His head was tilted toward hers. They were laughing about something that had already passed between them, something private and warm and completely out of place at 1 in the morning in a home that belonged to someone else. If you are enjoying this story, tell me in the comments which state you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's episode may touch a story that is still unfolding. The man was Deshawn, Uncle Deshawn, her father Marcus's oldest friend. The man who came to every birthday, every cookout, every holiday dinner in Charlotte. The man her father called brother. Zara stopped at the bottom of the stairs. The word came out before she could stop it. Mom. Imani spun around. Deshawn stepped back. The laughter died so fast it was as if it had never existed. 2 adults rearranged their faces in the same breath, guilt becoming confusion, becoming something that almost looked like calm. Zara stood in the doorway in her oversized sleep shirt and looked at them both. She was not angry. She did not understand enough yet to be angry. She was simply frozen, caught in that particular kind of stillness that only happens when a child's sense of normal breaks open without warning. Mom, she said again, quieter this time, what are you doing with Uncle Deshawn? The silence that followed was its own kind of answer. Imani crossed the room first. She moved with the careful energy of someone managing a situation rather than feeling it. She reached for Zara's shoulders, turned her gently away from Deshawn, and lowered herself to eye level with the steadiness of a woman who had already decided what the next words would be. Deshawn did not move. He stood near the bookshelf and said nothing. Zara looked at her mother's face and waited. And Imani smiled, the way people smile when they are about to ask you to carry something you were never meant to hold. Imani did not rush. That was the part Zara would remember later, how calm her mother was, how practiced. How the words came out soft and certain, like she had already rehearsed them in some version of this moment she had imagined before. Baby, Imani said, her hands still resting on Zara's shoulders, it is not what it looks like. Zara waited. Uncle Deshawn is helping me plan a birthday surprise for your father. That is all this is. We did not want him to find out, so we had to meet late. You understand, right? Zara looked past her mother toward Deshawn. He nodded once, a single quiet nod. His jaw was tight. His eyes did not hold the story Imani was telling. Zara was 11. She was not stupid. But she was also a child who loved her father, and the word, surprise, landed somewhere tender inside her chest. The idea of Marcus's face lighting up, the way it always did when something good came to him unexpectedly, was enough to make the rest of it feel negotiable. A birthday surprise, Zara said. Yes, Imani said. Something special, but you cannot tell him, Zara, not a single word, because if he finds out before the day everything is ruined, you would not want to ruin it, would you? The question was gentle. It was also a trap. Zara shook her head slowly. Good, Imani pulled her into a hug. Long, warm, the kind of hug that was also a seal, pressing the secret down into the child's chest and calling it love. Over Imani's shoulder, Zara watched Deshawn. He had moved to the far side of the room. He was looking at the floor. His hands were in his pockets and his shoulders were carrying something heavy that had nothing to do with birthday planning. Promise me, Imani said softly, pulling back and looking directly into Zara's eyes. Promise me you will not say a word to your father. Zara said yes. She said yes because she was tired and confused, and her mother's voice was warm and certain. She said yes because she did not yet have the language to name what she had seen. She said yes because she was a child, and children trust the adults who are supposed to protect them. She went back upstairs and lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. The house was quiet again, but the quiet felt different now. It had weight. It pressed down on her chest and sat there through the rest of the night, the particular heaviness of a secret that does not belong to you but has been placed inside you anyway. Downstairs, Imani turned off the small lamp. Deshawn left without another word. Morning came the way it always did on Briarwood Lane. Coffee smell, sunlight through the kitchen blinds, the sound of Marcus moving through the house with the easy confidence of a man who believed his home was solid. He was tall, Marcus, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. He coached youth basketball at the community center on Saturday mornings and came home smelling like hardwood and effort. He called Zara Little Light and meant it every single time. He was already at the kitchen table when Zara came downstairs. Imani was at the counter, pouring coffee, her back half-turned. Zara sat down. For a few minutes, everything looked exactly like it always did. Marcus scrolled through his phone and read something aloud about the Charlotte traffic on I-277. Imani set a plate of eggs on the table. The morning held its shape. Then Zara opened her mouth. "Daddy," she said, reaching for her orange juice, "when is your birthday again?" Marcus looked up. "October, you know that, baby, why?" Zara glanced at Imani without meaning to. "Just wondering," she said carefully. Imani had gone still at the counter. Marcus looked between them both. "You two planning something on me?" "No," Imani said, turning with a smile so quick it barely had time to form. "She is just asking. You know how she gets curious in the morning." Marcus studied his wife for a single beat. Then he laughed and went back to his phone. But Zara was not finished. "Daddy," she said again, slower this time, as if testing the ground beneath each word, "do you and Uncle Deshawn have the same favorite restaurant? Like, if someone were planning something for you, would it be the same place he would pick?" The kitchen shifted. Marcus set his phone down. "That is a specific question, Little Light." "It is just a question." Imani moved fast. She pulled a chair out, sat beside Zara, and redirected the entire moment with the efficiency of someone who had learned to manage conversations the way other people managed fires, quickly, before they could spread. "She has been thinking about how to plan things," Imani said lightly. "We were talking about it last night. You know how she overthinks everything, just like you." She laughed. Marcus smiled. Zara looked down at her plate. The moment passed. Breakfast continued. Marcus finished his coffee, kissed the top of Zara's head, and moved toward the door. But the confusion did not leave the table with him. It settled into the walls of the kitchen and stayed there, present in Imani's slightly too controlled movements, in the careful way she watched Zara for the rest of the meal, in the small and dangerous silence that had opened up between a mother and her daughter over a plate of eggs and a question that was never really about birthdays at all. It happened the way most important things happen, without ceremony, without warning, and in the middle of something completely ordinary. It was a Saturday afternoon. Marcus was home. The three of them were in the living room, Zara on the floor doing homework, Marcus reading near the window, Imani folding laundry on the couch. The television was on low. The house felt almost normal. Zara was writing about family for a school assignment. She was trying to describe her home without knowing how to describe the thing that had changed inside it. She said it without thinking. Uncle Deshawn was in the back of the house that night. The words came out small and plain, attached to nothing, connected to a thought she had not meant to say out loud. The room did not explode, it simply stopped. Marcus lowered his book. He did not look at Zara first. He looked at Imani, and Imani's face, just for a fraction of a second, lost its composure completely. It returned almost immediately, reshaped into something careful and controlled. But Marcus had already seen it. "What night?" he said. His voice was even, quiet, the specific quiet of a man who is choosing his words the way a surgeon chooses instruments. Zara looked up from her paper. She realized what she had done. "I just meant," she started. "Zara," Imani's voice arrived fast and clean, cutting across the room like something sharp. "You are talking about things you do not fully understand." Zara went still. Marcus turned to look at his daughter now. His expression was not angry. It was something more difficult than anger. It was the face of a man beginning to understand that the ground beneath him has been moving for some time, and he is only now feeling it. "What did you mean, little light?" he asked gently. Before Zara could answer, Imani stood up. "She is confused," Imani said, folding a shirt with precision. "Children hear things, they misremember, they mix up nights and times. You know how she is with details." "I am asking Zara," Marcus said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Imani stepped forward. "Marcus." Her tone shifted, less explanation now, more warning. "Do not turn our daughter into a witness in her own home. She is 11 years old. She made a comment she does not understand, and you are treating it like a courtroom." The accusation landed. Marcus said nothing. Zara looked between them both and felt the full weight of what was happening, not because she understood betrayal yet, but because she understood that somehow, in a room where she had said the wrong thing, she had become the problem. Imani looked at her daughter directly. "Secrets exist to protect people, Zara," she said. "You need to be more careful." Zara nodded slowly, but something inside her had quietly and permanently changed. The part of her that had been trying to believe the birthday story finally, without ceremony, let go. Marcus did not confront Imani that evening. He was the kind of man who needed to be certain before he spoke. He had built his life that way, measuring twice, moving once. He coached young boys in Charlotte to play the same way. Do not react to the first movement. Watch the pattern. Wait for the truth to reveal its shape. So he watched. He noticed the way Imani's phone screen turned face down whenever he entered a room. He noticed it once, told himself it was nothing. He noticed it again 3 days later and filed it quietly. He noticed that Deshawn had been to the house 4 times in the past 2 weeks. 4 times. They were close. He and Deshawn had been close since they were teenagers in Charlotte, since high school hallways and borrowed jackets and the kind of friendship that outlasts everything. But 4 times in 2 weeks was not normal. He noticed the book club. Imani had never, in 11 years of marriage, mentioned a book club. And now, suddenly, Tuesday nights were spoken for. She came home calm and slightly distracted, the way people come home from things they have been thinking about all day. Marcus started noticing the small architecture of her lies, the way she never named a single title from the club, the way she described the women there in only the vaguest terms, a woman from Dilworth and someone who works downtown, characters without edges, without faces, without anything that could be verified. He did not say this out loud, he carried it. He went to work at the architecture firm on South Boulevard and sat at his drafting table and thought about structure, the way he always did, the way he understood the world. Except now the structure he was examining was his own marriage, and every line he drew felt crooked. He called Deshawn once, a casual call, the kind they always had. He listened not just to what Deshawn said, but to the spaces between what he said, the slight hesitation before answering a simple question about the weekend, the way he moved off the subject of Imani faster than any innocent man would need to. Marcus hung up and sat in his car for a long time. Zara found him there when she came home from school. She knocked on the car window. He rolled it down and smiled at her, that specific Marcus smile that was always real, always present, no matter what else was happening inside him. "You okay, Daddy?" she asked. "Always," he said. She studied his face the way children study the faces of parents they love, looking for the truth beneath the answer. She did not find certainty. She found sadness, carefully dressed as steadiness. She went inside without another word. Marcus sat in the car a little longer. The Charlotte evening settled around him, quiet and indifferent, and the doubt he had been refusing to name finally arrived and sat down beside him like a second passenger. Marcus followed her on a Tuesday. He did not plan it as a dramatic act. He told himself he was simply going in the same direction, that it was not following if he stayed 3 cars behind, that a man had the right to know where his wife went on Tuesday evenings. He told himself these things the way people tell themselves things when they already know the truth and are not yet ready to receive it. Imani left the house on Briarwood Lane at 7:15 in the evening. Marcus left at 7:16. He followed her south through Charlotte, past the neighborhoods where the houses grew older and the trees grew taller, past the streets he had driven 1,000 times. She turned onto a side road near the South Park area. He followed. He was 3 cars back, then 2. Then the light changed and he accelerated without thinking, and the intersection arrived faster than he expected. He did not see the other car clearly until it was already too late. The impact was not catastrophic. It was the kind of accident that ends with deployed airbags and a wrecked front end and a body full of shock standing on the side of a Charlotte road at dusk, hands shaking, the world slightly tilted. He was taken to Carolina's medical center. Imani arrived 40 minutes later. She came in fast, her coat half-buttoned, her face arranged in the particular expression of a woman who has been frightened into forgetting, for a moment, every other thing she was carrying. She reached for his hand immediately. He let her hold it. The attending nurse came in a short time later to confirm the paperwork. She was efficient and unhurried, the way nurses are when the patient is going to be fine. She mentioned the Good Samaritan who had stayed at the scene until the ambulance arrived, a man who had been parked nearby, who had called emergency services and waited. He left his contact information, the nurse said. A Deshaun Calloway, he said he wanted to make sure the family was notified. The nurse left. The room held its breath. Imani released Marcus's hand slowly. She did not explain. She did not reach for an excuse immediately. For the first time since the midnight in the living room, the architecture of her story had no ready response. Marcus looked at the ceiling. He did not speak. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of the Tuesday evenings and the face-down phone and the careful vagueness and the 4 visits in 2 weeks. Full of a child saying a name in the wrong sentence at the wrong breakfast. Full of a friendship that had apparently continued in places Marcus had not been invited. Imani said his name once, quietly. He did not answer. In the waiting room down the hall, Zara sat alone in a plastic chair, her school bag on her lap, and waited. The waiting room at Carolina's medical center smelled like recycled air and fluorescent light, and the particular stillness of places where people sit with things they cannot put down. Zara had been there for an hour. She had done her homework. She had drunk half a cup of water. She had watched the doors open and close and open again, each time looking up, each time finding a stranger. When Marcus was moved to a recovery room and Imani went to speak with the doctor in the hallway, Zara was finally brought in to see her father. He looked smaller in the hospital bed. Not broken, Marcus did not break easily, but reduced, the way strong people look when the armor comes off and there is just a person underneath. His left arm was bandaged. There was a cut above his eyebrow that had been cleaned and closed. He looked at Zara and smiled. She crossed the room and stood beside the bed and looked at him. Then she began to cry. Not the loud, releasing kind of cry. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and has been waiting a long time to be allowed out. She pressed her hands flat against the mattress and looked at her father, and the thing she had been carrying since that midnight on Briarwood Lane simply rose up through her chest and arrived in the room with them. "Daddy," she said. "I am here," he said. "I am fine, little light, I am right here. I have to tell you something." He did not rush her. He did not say it could wait. He simply turned toward her with all of his attention, the same way he always did, and waited. Zara told him everything. She told him about waking up at 1 in the morning. She told him about coming downstairs and finding Imani and Deshaun standing in the living room with a closeness she did not have words for then, but understood more clearly now. She told him about the birthday surprise story. She told him about the promise she had been asked to make. She told him about the guilt she had carried through every breakfast and every school day, the way it sat in her chest when she watched her father laugh at the table, the way it grew heavier every time Imani reminded her that secrets protected people. She told him all of it. Marcus did not move. He did not interrupt. He did not change his expression in any way that would frighten her or make her feel responsible for what his face was doing. He simply listened. When she finished, the room was very quiet. He reached out with his unbandaged hand and placed it over hers. "You did nothing wrong," he said. 4 words, clean and certain and given without condition. Zara exhaled, a long, slow release, like something structural inside her had finally been permitted to rest. In the hallway outside, footsteps approached. Imani came back into the room first. She was composed, the way she was always composed in moments that required management. She had spoken to the doctor. She had information about the discharge timeline. She was moving with purpose, the way she moved when she needed the room to believe she was in control of it. Deshaun appeared in the doorway behind her. He had come to the hospital. Of course he had. Marcus understood now exactly what that meant. The room rearranged itself. Imani looked at Zara first. Something passed through her expression, a quick, involuntary reading of her daughter's face, and whatever she found there told her what she needed to know. She looked at Marcus next. Marcus was sitting up in the hospital bed. His bandaged arm rested on the blanket. His face was completely still. "Marcus," Imani began. "Close the door," he said. Deshawn closed it. Marcus looked at them both for a long moment, the two of them standing on the same side of the room, which said everything the words had not yet said. He looked at Imani the way a man looks at something he has studied his entire adult life and is now seeing clearly for the first time. "Tell me what is true," he said, nothing more. Imani started with denial. It came out practiced and immediate. There was nothing. Marcus was misreading the situation. Zara was a child who had misunderstood something completely innocent. The words were assembled and confident, and they landed in the room like objects no one wanted to touch. Marcus let her finish. Then he said quietly, "Imani." Just her name. But the way he said it, steady, final, without anger and without space for negotiation, was enough to stop everything. The denial dissolved. What replaced it was not a full confession. It was the particular kind of admission that comes when the cost of continuing to lie becomes higher than the cost of partial truth. Imani described it as an emotional connection, a friendship that had grown complicated. She used careful, architectural language, words that built walls around the worst of it, that made the damage sound manageable, that asked for understanding by minimizing the thing being understood. Deshawn said he was sorry, once, looking at the floor. Marcus let the silence sit for a long moment after that. Then he looked at Imani directly. "You did not just betray me," he said. "You handed our daughter the lie and asked her to carry it. You made an 11-year-old child complicit in what you were doing. You made her feel guilty for your choices." He stopped. "That is what I will not recover from." Imani had no response. Deshawn moved toward the door. "Do not come back," Marcus said, not loudly, with the quiet, absolute authority of a man who no longer needs to raise his voice to be believed. Deshawn left. The door closed. The room held only two people now, and the distance between them felt permanent. Zara was in the hallway when Deshawn passed her. He did not stop. He did not look at her. He walked toward the elevator with his hands in his pockets and his head down, the posture of a man who had already removed himself from something before it was finished with him. The elevator doors opened. He stepped inside. The doors closed. Zara watched the floor number change. Then she turned and walked back toward her father's room. The door was slightly open. She could hear her mother's voice through the gap, lower now, stripped of its composure, asking questions that were really requests. She heard the word please more than once. She heard the word understand. She heard the silence that followed each of them. She pushed the door open slowly. Imani was standing at the foot of the hospital bed. Her arms were crossed over her chest, not in defiance, but in the way people hold themselves when they are trying to keep from falling apart entirely. Her face had changed. All the careful management was gone. What was left was rawer and more honest than anything Zara had seen from her mother in a very long time. Marcus was looking at her. "I need you to understand what I am saying," he said. "I am not asking you to leave because I want to punish you. I am asking you to leave because I cannot build trust on a foundation that was already broken before I knew it was broken. And I will not raise our daughter inside a household that teaches her that silence protects people when it is really protecting the ones who are lying." Imani looked at Zara in the doorway. For a moment, just a moment, something passed between mother and daughter that was too complicated to be named. It was not hatred. It was grief. The specific grief of a relationship that has been altered by something that cannot be undone, even with honesty, even with sorrow, even with time. Imani picked up her coat from the chair by the window. She stopped at the doorway beside Zara. She opened her mouth and then closed it again. She left. Zara stood in the room and watched the space her mother had just occupied. Marcus waited. Then Zara walked to the side of the bed and stood there, and Marcus shifted carefully and made room, and she sat down beside him, not on a chair but on the edge of the mattress, the way she used to do when she was smaller, when the world was simpler, when the house on Briarwood Lane was exactly what it looked like from the outside. Marcus put his arm around her. "You did nothing wrong," he said again, for the second time that evening, with the same certainty and the same complete absence of condition. Zara leaned against him and did not answer. She did not need to. Some things do not require a response. They only require someone steady enough to say them twice. Months passed. Charlotte moved through its seasons the way it always did, warm into cool, leaves changing along the roads near Briarwood Lane. The community center on Saturday mornings, still full of young boys learning how to move with intention on a hardwood court. Marcus and Zara rebuilt. Not loudly, not with declarations or announcements. They rebuilt the way honest things are rebuilt, slowly in small moments through consistency rather than gesture. Zara went back to school. Marcus went back to work on South Boulevard. They made dinner together on weeknights, moved through the house without the weight of things unsaid, learned what it felt like to live inside a truth, however difficult, rather than inside a story. Zara laughed more. That was the thing Marcus noticed first and held on to most. She laughed the way she used to laugh before that midnight, freely, without glancing at anyone first to make sure it was allowed. Imani lived in an apartment in the Noda neighborhood of Charlotte. She called on Sundays. Sometimes Zara answered. Sometimes she did not. There was no rule about it. There was no bitterness engineered into the arrangement. Marcus had made certain of that. He would not teach his daughter to hate. He would not use her grief as a weapon. He told her that her mother was a person who had made a serious and damaging choice, and that loving someone and being hurt by them were not opposites, and that both things could be true at the same time. Zara was 11, and then 12, and she held on to that the way children hold on to things that make the world legible. Imani sat with her choices the way people sit with things they cannot put down and cannot stop carrying. The apartment was quiet. The phone rang less over time. Deshawn had moved away from Charlotte entirely, to somewhere that did not carry the shape of what he had done. The friendship that Marcus had called brotherhood was simply over now, quietly and completely, the way some things end without ceremony because they do not deserve one. One Saturday evening, Marcus and Zara sat on the porch on Briarwood Lane. The neighborhood was its usual self, warm light in windows, distant laughter, the sound of someone's radio 2 houses down. Zara looked out at the street and said quietly, "I am glad I told you." Marcus looked at her. "I know it was hard," she said. "I know it changed everything." "Truth usually does," he said. She thought about that for a moment. "But we are still here," she said. "We are still here," he agreed. The porch light was on. The street was quiet. The house behind them was not a perfect house. It never had been, but it was an honest one now, and there is a kind of peace that only becomes available once the pretending stops. They sat there a little longer. The Charlotte evening settled around them, easy and unhurried, and the story closed the way earned things close, not with noise, not with resolution that feels too clean to be believed, but with the simple, undecorated truth that what survives betrayal is not always the family as it was, but sometimes something smaller, quieter, and far more real. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching.